Hey guys, Ryan Platt here. I'm going to give you a little tour in and around Brandtview Farms Maple Sugar Camp. Try to show you guys the process, what we do here. Obviously, every maple camp's a little bit different, especially as you vary across the United States. We're located here in southwestern Pennsylvania, Somerset County. It's a family-owned sugar camp. It's been in the family for generations. This is our newest camp. It was built in 2005 and we've been operating out of it ever since. We'll get a little bit later in the video. We'll show you guys the older camp and some of the older techniques and stuff like that we used to use. But for right now, we'll start with the new camp. It's a little cold out here today, so I don't know if we'll get to experience the water actually running through the sugar lines or anything like that, but we'll try to make do with what we got and give you guys a tour. So, like I said, this building here was built in 2005 by the owner, Richard Brandt. We currently have right in and around 10,000 taps that we do every year. We're currently using the sugar lines or the tubing lines to transport everything, and it's a pretty self-sufficient operation that we've got going on here. All right, guys, so we're out here in the woods now. This is our main piece of property here. It's got probably 85 or 90% of the taps that we put out here. It stretches up over the hillside here. We're kind of down on the lower end of it, and I'll explain why here in a minute. So this here's obviously a maple tree. You got different kinds of maple trees here in southwestern Pennsylvania. You got hard maples, soft maples, sugar maples. Okay, so this tree here, as you can see, we got the tubing coming out of it. Obviously, when we first started, when I was younger, we used to cap everything by hand. It was a metal spout, a metal keeler with a lid on it. So basically what you do in the spring around this time, it's middle to late February, early March is typically when the sugar season comes in every year, and that all varies 100% off the weather. What you want ideally is you want the days to start getting up into the mid to high 30s, low to mid 40s, and then you want the nights to be 20 degrees to 32 degrees, somewhere in that freezing range. Okay, and what that does is when your days start getting warmer at the end of winter here, what it does is it drops the sugar water that's in the maple trees down. Okay, so what makes the process happen, or what makes that sugar water run that you can collect it every day, is when the temperatures drop at night below that freezing point, it kind of pulls all the sap up into the tree and freezes it. During the day, when the sun comes out, that temperature warms up again, like I said, that 40, 42, 45 degree mark. It causes that water to drop back down the tree. Okay, so what we do here is you drill a hole into the tree, I'd say 1.5 inches, something like that, into the tree. What we used to do, put a metal spout into the tree, hang that keeler from it, and when that temperature fluctuates, the water drips out of that metal spout into the keeler. Okay, so we used to obviously not have quite the operation we have here today, but we used to gather everything by hand, everything by tractor, hauling wagons. And what you do is you'd literally take that bucket off the tree, dump it into a bucket, walk it to the hauling stand, dump it in, and we gathered everything by hand. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of people involved back in the day. It used to be a lot of hard work, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to say put into the process. Now obviously things are a lot easier here. We have the sugar line set up, which takes out pretty much all of the physical work of collecting the maple sugar water here. So what we have here, as you can see, is the tubing lines. So it's the same concept. Variations in temperature causes the water to come out of this plastic spout. Gravity feeds down this tube into the little tubes, okay? And I'll explain here. We also have a pump set up. It's called a vacuum pump that helps pull that sugar water out of the tree. That's in this building here behind me. So that kind of helps aid the natural process, kind of helps gravity here, and that's kind of why we're in the lowest point of the woods here. So obviously you want gravity to be your friend and help out as much as you possibly can. So all these lines, gravity flows to this point. That vacuum pump also helps suck that water down to this point. As you can see over here, these are considered main lines. They're a lot bigger. Obviously with 10,000 trees getting tapped at the same time, that water running at the same time, you get a lot of water coming down through these lines. Okay, so they're a little bit bigger line to handle that volume of water. This line's made personally just to collect the water from this tree. Okay, every tree in the woods is tapped the same way, and the diameter of the tree kind of reflects how many taps you can put on the tree. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overwork your trees every year. Ultimately, you could cause damage to them, and then they won't produce. So you got to kind of be careful with the size of the tree, how many taps you put on it, that kind of thing. We're going to move down now. As I explained, everything runs to this point. I'll show you guys the vacuum pump and then what goes on in that building. All right, guys, so now we're in the vacuum pump building that we have set up here. So this unit here is actually the vacuum pump itself. Runs off electricity. Obviously, we have electricity down here to run all this. What this does, engine runs, it creates a vacuum or a suction. Okay, that suction then goes through this line here into this unit here. This unit here is set up and connected to all the main sugar lines that I just explained that go up through the woods. Okay, so this unit here, like I said, with gravity flowing the water down through, or helping the water flow down through, that extra vacuum also just helps aid to suck that water and really pull it down into this building. So what happens is here, ideally, this here shows the pressure that we have. Ideally, we want to be around 23, 25 pounds of pressure, and that varies. It's an easy way to check to see if you have any damage in the woods, a tree limb fallen that might have took some lines out, or whatever the case is. We have a lot of problems here with squirrels biting through the sugar lines, putting little holes in it. Fishers will bite through the sugar lines, put holes in it. Tree limbs falling down, knocking them out, or even later in the year, just the taps actually just falling out of the tree. All those different things can cause a drop in the pressure. So this system here kind of gives you a good idea of what you're looking at. If we're at that 23, 25 pounds of pressure mark, we know that the system's running as it should. We shouldn't have any major flaws up in the woods. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a big ice storm come through here, and this dropped from 23, 25 pounds of pressure down to 8 pounds of pressure in about an hour. So at that point, we knew we had something going on up in the woods that wasn't right. Obviously, we kind of assumed with the ice storm that we had a bunch of tree limbs that fell and took out a bunch of the main lines. Obviously, once those main lines are broken, that suction seal is broken, which causes that pressure to go down. So kind of an easy way to fix your problems, find your problems, that kind of thing. But this system itself, the water comes down through these lines, flows into this tube. This big cylinder here is actually divided into two. So what happens is that pressure, it'll fill up one side. When one side gets so high, it'll activate or set off a float that'll transfer to the other side. So once that side fills up, the float will switch it to the other side. That side will drain and the other side will begin to fill up. And it just keeps going back and forth like that all day long. When it empties out into this tank below me. I don't know the exact dimensions of this tank. I believe it's a 1,500 or 1,800 gallon tank. When that tank gets so full, again, there's a sub pump down in that tank with a float on it. When it gets so full, it automatically turns that pump on, which then pumps the water up through this pipe and down into the ground. I'll explain that a little bit farther in depth here later, but that pipe there we have run underground from this point the whole way up to the sugar camp itself, which is a few hundred yards through the woods. So, like I said, there's not a whole lot of man work that goes into collecting the sugar water anymore with the new system here. It's all pretty much an automatic system that controls itself. Yes, you still have to have guys come down and check in and make sure everything's working as it should from time to time, but the actual physical labor of collecting sugar water just isn't there anymore. So like I said, this automatically pulls the water up and takes it straight up to the camp. There's no physically hauling water by hand anymore, so this new setup really makes things a lot easier on us. We have like 10,000 taps total on the property. That main section of woods there has, like I said, 80-85%. I'd say somewhere around 8,500, 9,000 taps, something like that. We have a small piece of property over on another hillside that has 1,200, 1,500 taps on it, something like that. It's a little bit too far away to have the same system set up that we can have just a pipe run right to this building here behind me. So what we use is my grandpa owned an excavating company years ago, and he had this old, I believe it's a 60s International dump truck. He used it his whole life before he passed away. So we kind of restored it here a little bit, put a big tank on it, and this is what we use to haul water from that other site that has 1,500 taps over to here. That system over there also has the vacuum pump and all that stuff. It flows into that tank over there, and then we have to physically pump it from that tank into this truck and haul it over to this point. They're actually unloading this truck right now with some sugar water. It was pretty warm yesterday, so it ran. We're going to walk you guys in this building here and explain the rest of the process here. Alright, so that truck has a valve on the back of it. Open the valve, connect the pipes, and it flows into this little tank here. Okay, once it flows into this tank, you can see there's some water in it now. There's a sub pump in the bottom of this tank. That's a manual operation. We have to plug this sub pump in every time that we want to use it or pump water. So the truck flows into here. We turn this pump on and it pumps it up into this big old milk tank here behind me. As you can see, we got 2 milk tanks in here. They're roughly the same size. I believe one of them's 4,500 gallons and the other one might be 4,800 gallons, something like that. Like I said, they're 2 tanks off of old milk trucks that just got taken out of production. They weren't in use anymore. One of them actually had a couple holes in it that we patched up and fixed up. So the water we bring over from the truck gets pumped up into here, and then if you want to follow me up this way a little bit, I'll show you. That building that we were at down below, I showed you the pipe that went down into the ground, run underground up to the camp here. That's this pipe here, comes up out of the ground. Obviously we have heat tape and all that kind of stuff on it to keep it from freezing up. This pipe runs up and into both of these tanks. Okay, there's valves set up. We can control which tank it goes into. We normally fill this tank here first. Normally we don't have to use the other tank a whole lot because we kind of boil fast enough to keep everything just in this tank. If you get a couple days where the water runs pretty good, we do open up the other tank and fill them both up at the same time. Once these tanks are full, you want to follow me this way. So these tanks then have pipes connecting to them that go down into the ground here, a bunch of different valve systems, stuff like that. We can control what tanks flow where. So this pipe here is kind of just a drain. I'll explain that in a minute, but this pipe here runs down and into the camp itself. Okay, so when we're ready to start boiling, there's a few additional steps that we take here at Grandview Farms. I'll explain that once we get inside the camp here. But these tanks, the water runs down through here and into the camp directly. The pipe here that runs down into the ground, that's for cleaning purposes. So normally about once a week here, after we get a good flow of water, what we have to do is when the tanks are empty, we have to physically climb in the tanks with a pressure washer and clean them all out. That sugar water obviously has a sticky nature to it, so it kind of gums up the inside of these tanks a little bit. So that's kind of where you start to get into the work aspect of the new style of maple syrup that we have going on here. You do have to crawl into these tanks, pressure wash them out pretty frequently to keep everything clean and sanitary. So that's why we have a system set up that we can run the excess dirty water out. We're going to head down into the camp here now, and I'll explain what happens once the water exits this pipe and runs into the camp. Alright guys, so now we are inside the building here. What we got behind me here is an RO machine, reverse osmosis machine. I'll explain a little bit more of that here in a minute. So, how we used to do the sugar water when we had the old camp, we used to have a wood-fired evaporator. So the water comes out of the tree at roughly 1 or 2% sugar, 98, 99% water. Okay, what you got to do is you got to boil that water down so far to get maple syrup. It used to take hours to do with the wood fire, and then taking it from that 1 or 2% the whole way down to maple syrup takes a long time. So the thing we got here behind us, the RO machine or the reverse osmosis machine, what that does is the water flows from those 2 big tanks that I just had you out underground in through this RO machine. Okay, so the RO machine then, the sugar water goes through that, and what it does is it separates the sugar water from the natural water. Okay, so it takes that 1 or 2% sugar water and makes it 16, 17% sugar water on a good day. Okay, sometimes we're down at that 12% mark, somewhere in there. Ideally, we want to be around 15, 16%. So what that does, it really helps shorten the amount of time that you have to actually boil the water to get syrup. So this machine, like I said, it separates. We have a tank over here to the left. We'll show you that in a minute. That's where the pure water goes. It's as good as drinking water. I mean, you could drink it as soon as it comes out of that RO. It's 100% pure water. What we use that for, a lot of the times, is pressure washing tanks out, stuff like that. And then what happens with the other water, the sugar water, it gets separated and goes into a separate tank over here. We call it the concentrate tank. I'll show you guys that here in a minute. So if you want to follow me in, it's going to be a little loud because the RO machine's actually running here now. But I'll take you guys in here and at least show you what that machine looks like. Alright guys, I don't know if you can hear me or not. This is the RO machine. Way above my pay grade to try to explain everything that this machine does. The general consensus, the general idea of it is it separates the sugar water from the pure water. So this is what that machine does. It's definitely an expensive piece of equipment, but it definitely helps shorten other pieces of the process here. This tank behind you, that's where all the pure water goes that we use for pressure washing tanks, stuff like that. And then we're going to go over into this room here. Okay, so this tank here is the concentrate tank. After that water runs through the RO machine, all the concentrate or the sugar water that's now at like I said, 15%, something like that, flows into this tank. Okay, this is ultimately what gets run through the evaporator. So once this tank gets so full, we begin the boiling process. We have a sump pump in this tank. It runs and pumps it through this black hose here up to a tank on top here. We'll take you up there in a minute. It's a little tricky to get to, so we're just going to talk about it here. That tank up top there, I think, is around 500 gallons. And then that tank, the reason we have it up here, again, is the gravity. So we pump it up to that tank, and then we let that tank gravity feed down into the evaporator as we're boiling. So if you just want to walk with me here, we'll go up and show you that tank. Alright guys, so this is the tank I was just telling you about. It's, I think, 500 gallons, something like that, maybe a little smaller. It's actually full of concentrate right now. They're getting ready to boil here in a couple hours. So they're just trying to kind of build up the amount of concentrate you have, or they have. So once we start boiling, we can just keep boiling until we're out of water for the day. So this tank here gets filled up and gravity feeds down into the evaporator. We're going to go down and I'll show you the evaporator, which is the main thing in making sugar water. You got to have an evaporator at some point, whether it's simply putting sugar water on a pot and putting it on your stove. There's got to be some way that you're boiling that water to get it down to make maple syrup. So we'll go down here today and I'll show you that next. At the evaporator now, this is a fairly big unit for this area. Obviously you get up in Vermont and stuff, they'll have 6, 8, 10 of these side by side running. We're not quite to that level, but so here we got the tube. I just explained the small concentrate tank up there. It gets gravity fed down through this tube and enters the evaporator at this point here. Okay, it flows through this little box into the main part of the evaporator. Once it's in here, it gets boiled. Okay, this evaporator is powered by propane. I believe that this evaporator burns somewhere around 3 million BTUs or something like that. It's a pretty powerful machine, and when it's running, you can definitely hear it. It reminds you a little bit of a jet engine starting up. So once the sugar water enters here, it begins the boiling process. So as it boils, as time goes on, it boils and it pushes forward through the evaporator here. Okay, so we're going to move here to the front of the evaporator. Right over here. Alright guys, so this here is the front of the evaporator. As that sugar water moves forward, it enters the back corner there. Okay, as it enters there, it'll flow through all these pans before essentially becoming maple syrup. Okay, when it becomes maple syrup, that typically changes on a daily basis. Okay, it goes off the temperature of the syrup. Okay, so I think it's somewhere between 7 degrees above the boiling point of water. So every day the boiling point of water changes with the barometric pressure in the atmosphere, the weather, whatever it is. Typically they say 212 is the boiling point of water. That changes every day. It could be 211 point something, 213 point something. That varies every day. It's the same with the maple syrup. So it takes a little bit every day at the beginning to try to figure out what that temperature is to determine when you're actually at maple syrup. So what happens is that syrup comes out here into these two pans here, and what we use here, it's called a barometer. Okay, this is how you test and figure out whether your syrup's too light, too heavy, and again, that's all off the temperature. So what you do is you put this barometer, take a little bit of syrup into here, put the barometer in, and it floats. Okay, ideally we want this red line here to be right at the top of the syrup. Okay, obviously if that red line's down in the syrup, syrup's too light. If that red line's up above the syrup, it's too heavy. So that's kind of what you use to judge the temperature, and then you adjust the temperature on the evaporator to counteract that until you have that perfect temperature where that line is right where you need it to be. Hence, you know you're at and you're making maple syrup. Once the syrup is in these two tubs here, it then, once these fill up, we send it through this pipe here over to another machine. It's called a filtration machine. It takes all the impurities out of the maple syrup. Okay, it gets run through that. We'll just show you a quick of that here in a little bit. But alright guys, so these here are the filter press units. The syrup, like I said, it comes out through those through the evaporator into those drums, gets pulled over to here through these filter presses. Okay, what these do, like I said, takes any impurities out of the syrup that there may be from the tree, other things like that. So basically, it's run through by air and electricity. That air forces it through these. Once it goes through these, it goes through these couple pipes into the barrels where it's the final product. At that point, it's syrup. There's nothing else we have to do to it, and that is what we use to make the products and ship out for people to use.
You just saw the process of how pure maple syrup is made at Brandtview Farms Maple. Now you're in our store where we make all the good products that you like to take home with you and taste. We have 5 pure maple products and several that obviously aren't pure. I will start around the room and show you. Maple cotton candy is one of our favorites for young people and older people. If you love cotton candy, you'll love maple cotton candy. Our next one is the maple sugar cakes. Now this is a pure product. Very sweet, but very good. We have maple hardtack. We have a 1/4 pound and a lollipop. And then we have our pure maple syrup in jugs, gallons, half gallons, quarts, pints, half pints. And then behind Andy over there, if you want to show him the glass, which is also pure maple syrup in the glass. Do you want to hold them up?
Yep, we got the 50 ml, the 250, and the 100 ml leaf.
And another pure product is our pure maple sugar. And when we give a tour, we do tours here. We actually do this as a demonstration. You can see us making the pure maple sugar. It's neat to see. You go from, we usually take a gallon of maple syrup and we turn it into 8 pounds of maple sugar. And we have the sugar shakers. So we have a half pound sugar shakers and pounds. And if you keep going around the room, we have the maple coated nuts. So we had maple coated pecans, we have maple coated walnuts, peanuts, and almonds. And then we have a nut sampler that has little of each. We have 2 more pure products in the freezer here. We have pure maple cream, which you can buy in this container or this container. We like, actually, if you come to our maple tasting tour, we like to put the maple cream over ice cream. You can use it on toast. Use it kind of like a peanut butter. You can spread it on your toast, waffles, bagels. And then we also have pure maple taffy. And then we have a bunch of new products, which is not on the shelf yet. We're going to have maple mustard and maple barbecue. And we're going to do some maple eggs. They're maple cream eggs. Maple milk chocolate cream eggs, walnut eggs, and pecan eggs. Maple coated popcorn. And our last one,
So maple dog treats. They come in 5 ounce and the individual. And the individuals are pretty big size spoons. They all have really good ingredients, not anything that you wouldn't eat yourself. So no additive, no garbage or anything like that inside them. So they're actually not bad.
so at Brandview Farms Maple, we offer tours, and we are opening the store. So if you want to check our website, it'll always be updated with our current store hours.